Hello everyone. In this video I will be refinishing this little table. Although it's mainly just the top that I'm going to be refinishing. A client hired me to refinish this table for her. It was her mother's and I gave her two separate quotes and they decided to go with just the top, but I will be sprucing up the rest of it a bit because it also has a little wear and I want it to match up the best as possible. Since my client is just wanting the top refinished, I am going to use this masking tape and plastic to cover the base as I apply the stripper and I remove the old finish. So this, I just got this recently. I've not ever used it before. I got it actually for drawers. I thought it would be really good for this, so excited to try it out. So the stripper I'm going to use is the Smart Strip. I've used it before. It works well. I really like it because I try to use safer strippers, so it's not as toxic with fumes. So when I can, I try to make a safer choice. And also for my children, I'm working on my garage and I want them to be exposed to as little as possible as well. So the only thing I don't like about this is getting the lid off and on. It's kind of a pain. I do wish it was like a screw on top or something. But I'm gonna take off my gloves for this. But it's not the easiest. It's real simple to apply. See, it's paste in there. And I'm just gonna use a chip brush to apply it. You wanna put a good generous layer. I like to let it sit for at least an hour. The dwell time is longer on the container, but it's just, I find that it does tend to work well after about an hour. I did cover it with plastic wrap because I knew I was going to be away for a while, but then I'm just using a scraper and scraping it off, and then I will follow up with cleaning with acetone. I find that a seal wool pad actually works much better than the paper towel that I'm using, but I was being lazy and didn't feel like going to find them, and it did work well, but a seal wool would be more thorough and faster. Okay, here it is all dried. I ended up not being able to work on it the next day just because life was busy with getting my kids ready for school, but today school has started, so I'm going to get going on sanding. I will start with 80 grit, then 120, 180, and then 220, and hopefully it will be good to go then. For the edges, just to be on the safe side, I am hand sanding versus using my orbital because I can control how much I sand a lot better. For the curved edge here, I have a couple options. I mean, you could just take a piece of sandpaper and sand it by hand. Wouldn't be too bad given how small this is. The other option is just a contour sanding kit. It has lots of different curved edges that you can then attach your sandpaper to and then hand sand. So super effective. I'm going to start out with my Surf Prep sander, especially here on this side where the grain is going like this. It's pretty tedious to have to sand that way. So it'd just be easier to use some type of orbital and go across there. So we'll see how that works and keep going. I'm starting out with my squishier foam abrasive. You can see this other one is a bit denser. The squishier one will conform to the edge better, and it'll also like take off less though as it sands. So sometimes I just like to start out with this one to test and see how the wood responds, because if it's acting a little softer and I start taking off more, then I know this will be good. Otherwise, I can maybe switch to the denser one. And this shot gives you a really nice angle of how well it conforms to the edge. I have it all good and sanded now, up to 220 grit. I've wiped it down, and I'm going to start with this special walnut stain and just see how it compares to the current color that's on there. I'm anticipating probably having to do some toning to match the top and bottom, but I'll just see how it goes as I get there. Use this chip brush. Another really great way to apply stain if this were a larger surface is a paint edger. You can just dip it into something and apply it really easily that way. But I'm just going to use this chip brush since it's a small area and then wipe it all back at once. I do have to move somewhat quickly because it's pretty warm already. After it dried, I wasn't happy with how it looked, and I decided to switch over to a gel stain. I knew I wanted to use a wipe-on polyurethane, so I thought that would be a good time to switch. And prior to this, I was giving it a light sanding because using a water-based stain had caused the grain to raise, and so I was just knocking that back gently. Once the stain was dry, it is time for the top coat. I'm using a wipe-on polyurethane. This is really easy to use. You do want to be careful that your stain is completely dry because I have put it on a gel stain before and the stain just wiped right off. So be really mindful of your dry times. But I do find this pretty beginner friendly. You do want to be mindful that you don't over wipe it. Like it will start to dry, get a little bit sticky on you somewhat quickly. So I'll wipe it on there, give it a nice like gentle wipe across it just to help with maybe any bubbles or texture that might be on there, and then I'll move to my next section. Here it is the next morning. You can see from this angle that it's a little streaky looking. That's totally normal. After I get another round or two on there, that'll start to even out. I'm giving it a very light sand in between coats with this higher grit sanding sponge. I'm using 600 grit, but you don't have to use that, but I would use something higher than 200 for sure. I wanted to do 3 coats total, so it's just a matter of rinsing and repeating the process. And now I was not happy with the color. It ended up being a little too brown as compared to the base of the nightstand. So I am going to try this toner to see if I could get it to match a little bit better, because I know this toner has a little bit of red underneath it, and that's the color I need to bring out. You can see as I pull back that plastic that unfortunately it still looks pretty two-toned. It's a lot more brown versus the red undertones on the bottom. So my next step is to try to tone the bottom part with a bit of a darker gel stain. I'm going to first need to give it a really good scrub down, give it a clean with Simple Green, and then I will come in to scuff sand it before adding the gel stain. I feel like this angle really shows just how this one has a browner tone, this one has a redder tone. So I'd use Special Walnut on top here. So I'm going to start with a walnut gel stain. So I figured it'll have similar brown tone as what's on here, and it's also by Minwax. And gel stain more like sits on top of the surface, and it will especially do that with this not being fully stripped. But I'm gonna put this on here. Hopefully it's gonna tone it, or this will match better, and we'll just kind of proceed from there. Crossing my fingers. Just using a chip brush, putting this on. Ooh, it's a little drippy. I'm muffled because I'm wearing my respirator. This is oil-based. You especially want to protect your lungs. I'm wearing gloves as well. I'm going to kind of work in sections. These little shop towels, I buy them off of Amazon. I set up like a subscribe and save subscription with them. So I get them every couple months or so. Alright, I don't know how much color's really going on there. If this doesn't take well, then I may just go in with a darker gel stain that I have. I did end up using that darker gel stain. It's Kona by Varathane, and I do think it helped make it a shade darker like I needed. And this is your friendly reminder to always lay out those staining rags to dry so they don't catch fire. After letting it dry for a couple days, it was time for top coat. I waited a couple days because I switched to a water-based top coat. I did tint the top coat a little bit. I used some of that brown water-based stain that I originally used on the top. That's so the top coat can also act as a bit of a toner. Looking back, I probably should have been a bit more generous with how much I did tint it, but I think it still turned out pretty good. And after 3 rounds of top coat, it was finished. All right, let's take a quick look back at this sweet little table. It's always an honor when someone asks me to refinish something for them, especially when it's an heirloom from their family. It definitely had lots of wear from over the years, but nothing a little refinish couldn't fix. And here she is all finished. You can see it is so much better, especially that top. It turned out really pretty. Now you can see here from the side view that there's still a little bit more of a red tone on the base of it versus the top, but the client was happy with it, so that was the main goal, and I'll keep working on my refinishing and matching skills, but overall I'm happy with it. And of course, I'd love to hear from you what you thought about this partial refinish, or if you have any tips or tricks that you've learned from your experience. I would love to hear about them in the comments, and of course, that always helps others too who are watching this. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.